All right, so it's just after 2 o'clock, and what we'll do, we'll start this month's webinar. This month's webinar is on worker management. So probably arguably the biggest subject in your system, hence why the system is actually being, creating the system in the first place, is all about managing your workers in your workplace. A lot of people just think that the worker is actually just an employee. So I thought I'd dig up the legislation here at under Safe Work Australia, where it actually gives you the definition of what a worker is. And a worker is more than just the employee. It's the contractors and subcontractors, literally anyone that you hire to do something for work with you. So a lot of people just think, I know, I've got a contractor, I don't have to worry about that contractor management, they've got their insurances and so forth. No, you still actually have a duty of care to make sure that anyone on your facility, and all these different things, have all these things in place. So what are those things? So if I go back to the basic fundamentals, you need to have safe systems of work. You need, have, say for example, safe accommodation for workers if they're working remotely. So it's safe use of plant, structure and substances. So therefore, all the equipment that you've actually got in place, your duty of care is to make sure that you keep that in safe working order. So therefore, your workers are safe. So, and all these different things here as well. And some of the big things is that you're looking at, you need to provide training, and we're going to go over that in this webinar today. And you're looking at when you're actually kind of consulting with your workers, being that is probably the biggest part of legislation and your duty of care relating to WHS or OHS legislation, to make sure that you're actually consulting with your employees to provide a safe workplace. So let's go to the system itself. So it's and let's go over the employee section. So the employee section literally links to every single register inside the system. It links in certain ways. You can actually make people responsible to do something. If it's an action, you know that you've got the hazard register has actions when you actually develop the control measure. You've got incidents when you develop a corrective measure. It's got actions. These are all related to an employee field, and they all go into that employee's to-do list. So it's but let's go to the employee register. So the employee register literally is, pretty easy to use, but you'll see it has many, many relationships. Of course, you can use the helper to add a new employee if you wanted to do so. If you're a new kind of client and don't know how to use the system, all you have to do is literally start back on the home page, come to this helper over here, select worker management, how to add an employee, and the system will take you step by step on what you need to do. So this is literally me taking you through how to actually enter an employee. But let's go over certain things inside the system that you might not have known if you're a client, a long-term client, or even if you're a new client. So in this register, yes, just like every other register, you can add an employee from the top right-hand button. But you can also produce this register in a variety of reports. You'll see that, basically at the end of the day, it's probably best to do it in a Excel spreadsheet. Reason being is you might have a comma somewhere or whatever it may be, and if you put it in a CSV file, what it'll do will push the line across. That's why when sometimes you export things as a CSV file, you think, oh, hang on a sec, that report hasn't come out correctly, so it's better to produce it as an Excel spreadsheet. So in this here, it'll actually highlight all your employees and all their qualifications and all those different things. Or it'll actually highlight, if I just publish this, it'll actually highlight their username. So it's so you're looking at, if I get here and I just go enable that, so it'll actually highlight all these details, but you'll see that it'll highlight their username but not their password. Now it doesn't highlight their password for privacy reasons. The old system that we actually had it that you could actually see as an admin user the username and password, but we had some people, especially when we have a lot of NDIS and council kind of government kind of clientele, they've actually said, no, we can't have that done. So if you need to actually, for an example, your employees come to you and said, oh, hang on a sec, I've forgotten my username and password. So you can come here, select view next to an employee. You will highlight their username. but you could reset their password as something simple. Maybe your company name in lowercase, probably the best. So when it comes to a password, you can have more than one employee with the same password, but obviously you can't have all the same employees with the same username. So you're looking at, if you did need to reset one of your employees' passwords, you're just selecting view next to the employee, come here and do that. When they log into the system, yeah, you can actually get them to highlight to reset their password for privacy reasons. And then that way if they forget it again, you can go through the same routine. So totally up to you how you want to handle that kind of process. But while we're here on this page here, this actually highlights all the information of that employee. These are picking up all the qualifications that you've entered inside the system. You've also got inductions or whatever it may be and checklists that they've done. But this view history, it's probably better if I'll log in as Michael, because I'm usually, when I'm doing presentations, I'll log in as Michael. So if I go view history next to here, so you're looking at, this highlights all the incidents relating to that employee. But the big kind of feature here is that when the person uses the induction register, it will highlight in their history every single induction they've completed. You can select on that induction, and you can even print that out and see what they answered right or wrong. So for an example, if you've used the induction section, and you'll see we'll do stuff on the induction later on this year in one of the webinars, but you're looking at when you're actually building your inductions, you can actually set those inductions for the employee to maybe have 2 or 3 attempts. And if they then fail that induction, then it sets an email alert to you to notify you that they failed that induction. And what technically you're supposed to do is then come here, print that out, sit down with consultation with that employee and go over what they answered right or wrong. So it's a great way for you to continue to improve that employee and to make things better. So you would actually, this section here, you would, if they did fail, you print that out, go to the meeting builder and then record all those different things. You might even, say for an example, want to go then and add notes that you've actually had consultation with this employee. So you can add consultation or whatever it may be, notes that you want to do here, and you're looking at, you can enter that in and submit. So once that's done, if you go to view history, you'll see that if I come to notes, that it's added into this list here. So you can make notes relating to that employee about anything, and it's actually kept in the notes section here. Any checklist that the employee has undertaken via logging into the system and selecting their name. So will it record here if it's via the QR code? No, it's literally impossible to do. But if you've selected in the checklist feature, come down to the checklist feature, if you've actually selected in here that 1, you've opened this field and they select their name, or 2, down the bottom, you've actually selected, do you want your employee listed in the form? Then they select their name, it will save it, or they've logged into the system and done a checklist, it will save it in that log. So you can actually see all the checklists that employee has actually undertaken. You can do it like that if you want to, but please note, if they're just scanning the QR code and you haven't selected those fields in the checklist section, it will not save it in that view section, because it literally will not understand who that person is, even if they just enter it as text. They just can't do that. One of the big kind of features and upgrades coming into this system, other than when I mentioned about the induction builder upgrade and also the corporate risk section coming into the system by the end of the month, is we're actually producing this new ID card for the employee. So I'm not sure many people may have seen the plastic QR codes that we've actually got. You already know that if I come to, let's just say for example, let's just come to the internet form, it's just easier. And I go print QR code, and I want to create a QR code. You're looking at creates that ID with the internet form and the QR code. Well, the employee ID will be very similar to this. So what it'll actually do, it'll have the employee name, it'll have a QR code, and also a photo if you've uploaded a photo. When they scan that QR code, it will actually automatically take you to that employee's view section. So technically, if your workers are out on site or you want to see whatever it may be about that worker, they can scan their QR code on that you've printed out. Now you can print it out and do it yourself, but we do have this new plastic card machine that can actually do this for you, and then they can see all the things relating to that employee. Good for companies who are, say for an example, who need to have IDs for their employees coming on and off sites, that kind of stuff. But we are kind of taking this up a notch, as George Costanza would say, is that with this new ID card, we've got these new cards that actually imprint an ID of the card into this plastic card. So let's just say, for example, if I come to Michael Vulture, you'll see in the coming month that there'll be a field in here, not just USI, but it'll be an ID identifier. So what that will do, that will pick up this new plastic card. That's if you did want to order them and purchase from us. So what it will do, will create an ID card where literally the employee can just tap this new kind of entry kind of process that we've got, and it'll record the person in and out, literally like do a timesheet, but also highlight all the qualifications or anything like that needed for that employee. So it's going to be a very, very big feature coming into the system. But while we're here, let's go over how to enter and how important this kind of page is relating to everything. This is the most important field. As you know, you've got multi-sites within your system. And in those multi-sites, if you relate a person to the site in red, part of the reason why that is red is because that is the global site, this one here. So the global site, and I'll just open up, I'll have to open up another presentation deck, I'm sorry. The global site is this site up the top. Any employee related to that site is seen in every single site underneath that. But you can relate an employee to this individual site if you want to. But the beauty about the system is that you might have employees that are going to be related to more than one site. So you can actually select more than one site. So that means when the employee comes in, logs in, they'll see all the information to each one of those sites that you've actually selected. If you've related them to the global site, they're going to see data from every single site. So you might say, I don't want my employees to actually see all the data from every single site. So don't relate them to the global site. Just relate them to the site that you want them to be related to. So you might, usually you would relate just an employee to the individual site. So, and that individual site would be one of these sites down here. Totally up to you how you want to do it. But as I mentioned, you can relate it to more than one site or every site by relating to the site in red, which is the global site. So a lot of people over the, we have a lot of tickets or a lot of people ask questions. I don't want my employees to see all the plant items relating to a certain site. Well, that's fine. Don't relate your plant items to the global site. Then that way there, not everyone sees them. So usually stuff that you relate to the global site is mainly kind of policies and procedures, that kind of stuff. You might relate some certain checklists to that site as well. But when it comes to employees, most of the time it's just usually the person, the WHS officer or the person managing the system or the people who actually need to be notified if something's going on would be related to the global site. It's best for you to relate all the other people to their individual site, remembering that you can relate them to more than one site. Now you can upload an image here, but please, it's a good idea if you get a product called Snagit, which if you've seen all my kind of videos and graphics and so forth, you'll see that Snagit's a great little program. It's from TechSmith. It only costs $65, one-off cost. You'll use it all the time. So the reason why I say that there is that this image, if you take it on your mobile phone, it will be massive. So what you need to do is then send it to an email, open it up and Snagit, and then reduce that image so it's actually, sits in there quite nice instead of being, huge, and it just won't upload and it won't look good on the ID card. So so you're looking at, you can enter their first name, last name. Now you've got three major permission levels. So the three major permission levels in the system determines on what they see. So if I actually come down to this page again, so you're looking at, a global admin user. sees everything and usually is the person at the top of the tree here. Then you've also got, say, for an example, management permission level. They see everything, but only related to the site that they're related to. If they're related to more than one site, then this figure might be, instead of 4, might be 8, whatever it may be. So, but you can see that this admin user's seeing everything from every single site. So this management permission level is usually the parent site underneath that. So, and your employees, when they log into the system, they see a different page. You'll notice that with the employees, nice, big, easy icons, and every single employee has what's called their to-do list. So we'll go over the to-do list a little bit later on. So selecting global admin management or employee depends on what that person will see when they actually log into the system. This position register here, well, this is used to be a bit of a nothing field back in the day, but you're looking at, it's quite a useful field now, because this links to, hence why I said working management and position section, this links to your position register. And in your position register, if we just quickly go there, and we'll come back to that section, let's go to the position register. You can enter a position inside the system, but you can actually assign inductions and training requirements needed for that certain position. So as normal, like the system all interlinks with all the other registers. So if you select this position field back here for the employee, it's picking up that Michael's an administration officer, and you might have assigned certain qualifications and certain inductions to that position. And you'll see when we finish this page here that will automatically create a training needs analysis in your qualification matrix. So just this one register is literally linking to all these things. And by you selecting certain fields in here, it's automatically doing all these things. Remembering you can change this at any time. It's not set in stone. So you've got your job type. So you've got full-time, part-time, casual, volunteer, or supervisor. So, sorry, or volunteer. So you're looking at, if you select volunteer, that when you enter the person's details in here, it will not be seen in your employee register. It will be seen in your volunteer register. So just remember when you enter, if you've got volunteers and you think to yourself, hang on a sec, they're not in my employee register. Yeah, because they're not employees, they're volunteers, even though they still come under the bracket of work and management. Even though they're a volunteer, you still have the duty care to make sure that you provide a safe workplace for that employee and do all those things that you need to be doing. You got your supervisor field. This actually links into the incident module. So therefore, if this employee and this was the supervisor, this supervisor would be notified if there was an incident occurred. So yeah, you want to kind of use that field, and you'll see that if you actually use that field a little bit more later on, I've got some upgrade coming into the system that's really going to make this field quite important. You do have your salary field and your rates and all those different things, and what those fields are doing, it's picking up your fields in your incident reports. So if I actually come down to my incident reports and I come down here and I go, okay, you know, cost of number of days and cost and all that kind of stuff, that's picking up that wage bracket and how many days that person had off work. But I mean, you don't really need to fill in that field, especially for privacy reasons. You might want to put your employees' data in there, knowing that management permission levels will be able to see that for employees relating to them. So hence why it's not a mandatory field. Might be easy for you to just leave it later. USI, well, that's a unique student identifier. It's a lot of our kind of clients who are kind of government or Queensland University of Southern Queensland kind of requested that there because they wanted to identify the individual person. So you'll see that will be going in there. And that's where there'll be another field underneath this section here, which will be that new ID card, because it'll be encrypted into it. Obviously, it won't be mandatory because you will only be able to get those encrypted ID cards by ordering through us. It's going to be around about $12.50 a card, but it's going to be a great feature managing your employees or contractors, visitors, or whatever it may be, coming on and off your site and recording every single thing. So you've got a job start date. So you know how to use the calendars and so forth to do this. And a lot of people say, oh, why is that date important? Well, many years ago, I must admit, there was one client that they didn't actually have that job start date inside there. About 3 years after the employee had left the business, the employee was now making a claim, believe it or not, and they needed to look up when this employee actually work that period of time, but they hadn't filled in this field. Lucky enough, we had it in our database that say, hey, that Michael Fulcher was entered into the system on whatever date it was, so we could actually prove that that employee wasn't actually even working there at that period of time. But you might want to have this date in here because you'll see in the future upgrades coming up, that's going to actually be quite a good little field. So it's you got your basic kind of numbers here with the mobile phone number. Yes, if you want to enter your data inside there, part of the reason why you want to do that, that's only if you want their phone number in there to receive SMS alerts, because you can set SMS alerts inside the system through the notification register, but you need to purchase your SMSs first. Obviously, we had some people, our people aren't receiving the SMSs. Yes, they don't have a mobile phone number in there. Oh, okay. So it's so you need to put that in there. Date of birth. Good idea to put the date of birth in there because later on, a little bit of an upgrade into the incident section, it's going to populate that whole incident section with the person's date of birth, some of the stuff that you kind of need when you're actually reporting incidents. You've got all these kind of other details down here, emergency contacts and so forth, which I highly recommend that you actually put inside there. A lot of people don't, but they should. So it's this is more than just a safety system. It's trying to help you also be like a HR system and manage all those different things as well. So this is the real big feature here of this section here, which is the qualification section. Obviously, you've got many, many employees that you actually have, and they might have a variety of qualifications to undertake a certain role. So in here, you can actually add a qualification by hitting the green plus sign, and you can actually edit or delete a qualification. You can't delete a qualification if it's already been related to an employee. So just got to make sure it'll bring up, oh, this qualification is related to a certain person. If you've got problems with that, just put in the ticket and Julie and the girls will actually look after it. So you're creating this drop-down list here. So when you first get your system, this is blank, other than if you actually filled in your starter kit and you entered all of them in. But you can add qualifications in here as much as you wish, as many qualifications as you want. The reason why I've highlighted this 1, 2, 3 here is you could, if you wanted to, you might have certain qualifications that it puts them in alphabetical order as it is, but we've had some client go, yeah, but alphabetical order, we're working with children is our big thing, so we want that at the front. So that's why I highlight you can actually put numbers here. So put numbers there, and then it will be at the top of your list. That's what that feature was there. You can have an alert date and an expiry date. Obviously, alert date, you want to find out prior to the person expiring, and then you've got an expiry date, obviously, when the person's qualification is expiring. You can enter an ID card, but you can also upload the certificate inside here. Please note, when you're actually doing that, you're usually scanning that document. When you're scanning that document, even though it says it's a PDF, is not a PDF. It's actually an attachment. So just open up that PDF. You usually have to open it up to have a look and see if it did it anyway, and then save as PDF, and then upload it, and you'll find you'll have no problems uploading that document. Part of the reason why I won't accept the other ways is because it's a good way to enter viruses into the system, and the database won't allow that. No database shouldn't do that. So you can add as many qualifications as you wish. You can download the document that you've uploaded here, and you've also got, make sure if you do want this employee to receive email notifications, make sure their email address is in the system and it is correct. We've had clients in previously, not so many now, but you're looking at, they said, oh, our employees didn't receive an email alert. Yes, well, they didn't have an email address in here, so it's pretty hard to get an email address in here. It's probably not a good idea to have the username as the person's email address. Make it unique to them. And but the system automatically generates a username when you first get the system. Usually there's name, underscore, and a number. And it's a unique identifier because we know to items the same in our entire database of all our clients inside our system. So totally up to you how you want to do that, but I highly recommend that you don't try to make that username too complicated. A lot of people put usernames and they've got underscores and this. There's no way the person's going to remember it. So you're looking at make it nice and easy for them to actually remember and so forth, and you'll find that that'll be the best way to go, knowing that that person can actually change it at a period of time if they wanted to. So the employee register is a pretty important part of it. So let's go over some of these features on the register itself. You've got all these buttons up here, which are kind of little playing around with to make it a little bit easier for them to use, but it actually highlights these icons here. You'll see that these icons here highlight that this employee's never logged into the system. It highlights that this qualification expired, and it highlights that induction expired. But you can actually come here and select this, and it'll give you a list of those people as well. So another thing, say for an example, if I go back to the active register, is this feature here. That's if you want to actually, say for an example, send a username, a password out to all your employees at the start and so forth, or deactivate. But you can actually come through here and deactivate more than one person at a period of time. This kind of feature later on, we're going to put in lots of registers because it'll just make it easier. This register is also highlighting what kind of permission level there is. So if someone logs in system and says, hang on a sec, when I log into the system, I'm seeing this dashboard and I'm seeing these big icons, straight away I'll know that they've related themselves to the employee permission level, because this is what the employee sees when they log into the system. Please note, an employee has limited access. They can't delete, they can't deactivate, they can't do all these things. They can actually download a document, they can enter it, they can do a checklist, they can log an incident, they don't see the incident register, they can log a hazard, it's all these different things. So it's about managing that control of that employee so they can't come in here and just delete all your stuff. But as I mentioned before, every single employee has what's called their to-do list. You'll see there's a little bit of an update coming into this, which we're going to trick this up, make it even better. But you're looking at, you can actually assign things via the to-do builder for the employee to do, or if there's anything inside the system, whether it be, say, for an example, an incident, you've set an action, or all these different things, a hazard, you've set an action for someone to do, checklist, you've set an action, anything will be in this to-do list. If you built an induction for that employee and assigned it to the employee, it will be in their to-do list. When they click it and undertake it, it will take it out of their to-do list. Very, very good feature. People really like it. So it's this communication section is going to be coming later this year, where you'll be able to add communication and send it out to all your employees, and it will be kept in a communication log for that employee to go, well, hang on a sec, I didn't get that. I never knew nothing about that. Well, yes, you did. We sent it out in communications and I highlighted that. So later that year, that's coming in there. We've got some other nice little features, as you know, constantly upgrading the system the best it can be. So you're looking at, if I come to the volunteers register here, so as I mentioned before, if you enter an employee inside the system and you select that they're a volunteer, they'll go into this register here. But you've also got your induction matrix relating to your volunteer register as well. So you can assign inductions and record them via that volunteer register, as well as upload documents and so forth. So you're looking at the qualification matrix is a really powerful matrix because it does link to that qualification section that you did before. You can see that the D is actually highlighting that this person's past their due date. They're not expired yet, so it'll highlight D if it's expired. But you should set up email alerts inside the alert register to alert you that these qualifications are expiring or have expired. Now, it doesn't email alert the employee. It'd be literally physically impossible to do because there'd be so many emails going out every single day, but it does put it into the employee's to-do list. So it's a good idea when you're actually doing this is you publish this register, maybe in a date range. You've got date fields here, so you can publish in a date range to see who's expiring in the coming month or months. Then you can organise all your training, all those different things. Part of the reason why this is yellow here, as I mentioned before, we can set certain qualifications or training requirements relating to the position that John is related to. So if he needs to have first aid, in here it's actually highlighting that he doesn't have first aid in the system. Now, he might have it, but it's just not in the system. So you would ask, by the way, John, have you got your first aid? Need to bring it in so we can put it inside the system. Or for an example, if it's if he hasn't got it, you're going, well, you can't do that position because you need that qualification. So good little feature. Again, you can publish this in a variety of reports and seeing what qualification to do. You can even save an example with this section here, qualification needs analysis, and it'll actually publish all these ones in yellow to highlight that, hey, you need to get all these employees' details. I could go over contractor management, but we'll be doing contractor management in a separate section later this year, looking at a lot of people just don't understand that when it comes down to it, contractors are workers for you. So, and you might say, I don't hire any contractors. Well, I say you do. So it's part of the reason why a contractor is that you might have a contractor that undertakes work for you, but you've also got contractors coming onto your site to do certain things. For an example, they might be coming onto your site to do your fire extinguisher checks. They might be coming on to fix a light or a PowerPoint. All those people are contractors, and you've got to make sure that they have the proper qualifications, proper safe work processes, but most importantly, they've got all the appropriate insurances in place before they undertake work for yourself. Because if you don't, and something does happen, and I've seen it, and I've talked to clients who ignored it at their peril, and you're looking at even if that contractor is the nicest guy in the world and you've known him for ages, I'm telling you, once those solicitors get in their ear and into the person's ear, things are going to change. So this whole system is all about protecting your business and putting those points that we actually discussed back at the start and your responsibilities, all these responsibilities in place. I mean, I could go on for this subject for quite some time, but I noticed that I've already been going on for over half an hour, so we might have to kind of call it quits there. But you're looking at this register is obviously what it's all about, providing a safe workplace for all your employees. And what you're doing is using all the other registers inside the system. And I'll just finish off in the next 5 minutes. So the best way for you to start to identify these things is to identify the activities and identify your plant items used and the chemicals used and the sites that you're at. When you do that, then you can actually start building your policies, developing hazard control measures and so forth, and developing procedures and checklists, and building your inductions to educate your employee on your new safe work processes. So that's really how you're going to do it. So use these registers here to identify, then use these registers to build, and then do all your other stuff, and then induct the employee via that, and then you get them to use the checklist builder to maintain that safe kind of process. The worst thing you want to do is be using this register down here. So because if you do all those other things in place, you're not going to be using this register as much as if you didn't. So I hope that helped you with everything. I usually go over some of the upgrades inside the system, but I might get our new employee, Julianne, who's been with us now 3 months. We're actually starting a new service now. We're actually building a consultancy arm in the business. So if you do need help with your system, instead of us outsourcing it to previous agents or that kind of stuff who really don't know the system as well, and also maybe charge you a little bit more, you can actually now get that consultancy service from Julianne and her team. And you're looking, it'll be a far reasonable rate, but also she's going to know everything about the system, and she's always going to ask me about how to get the most out of the system. So I hope you enjoyed that one. I did actually record this, so I remembered to do so. So I'll be putting that into the help section up here. So you'll see help for resources, and you'll see that I have forgotten about April, but I'll do that and I'll put that up there in the coming days as well. So it's yes, and so you'll see that this will build up. Hence why we do these webinars, because the system is constantly changing to make it best it can be. Thank you very much, and hope everyone's well with everything going on, and good luck with everything. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask. Thank you.